Tensions between Iran and Israel are not just rising on the surface, but deepening in ways that make the situation far more unstable than it appears at first glance. What we are seeing is not a sudden conflict, but the result of years of hostility, indirect confrontations, and strategic pressure building up behind the scenes. Both sides have been involved in shadow conflicts, proxy battles, and intelligence operations across the region, which means this tension is layered and complex rather than simple or isolated. In recent developments, the pace of escalation has become faster and more unpredictable. Statements from both sides have grown sharper, actions have become more direct, and the margin for error has become dangerously small. Even a minor incident, something that might have been ignored or controlled in the past, now has the potential to trigger a much stronger reaction. This creates a situation where decisions are being made under pressure, increasing the chances of misjudgment. Another factor making this tension more dangerous is the level of readiness both countries are maintaining. Military forces are not just present but alert, and responses are being planned in advance rather than improvised. This means if something happens, the reaction will be immediate rather than delayed, leaving little room for diplomacy to step in and calm things down. The speed of response itself becomes a risk, because faster reactions often leave less time for careful thinking. At the same time, public sentiment and political pressure inside both countries are adding fuel to the situation. Leaders are under constant pressure to appear strong and decisive, which reduces the likelihood of backing down or choosing restraint. This creates a cycle where each action is met with an equal or stronger response, pushing the situation closer to a breaking point with every step taken. The involvement and growing preparedness of the United States adds an entirely new layer of seriousness to this situation, transforming it from a regional tension into something that carries global weight. Unlike smaller conflicts that remain contained within borders, the presence of a superpower means that every move is being closely monitored, calculated, and potentially responded to with significant force. The United States is not just observing from a distance. It has strategic interests, long-standing alliances, and military commitments that tie it directly to the outcome of any escalation involving Israel and Iran. What makes this even more critical is the level of military readiness being maintained. The United States has a history of rapid deployment capabilities, meaning forces can be positioned and mobilized in a very short amount of time. Aircraft carriers, advanced fighter jets, and defense systems are often placed on high alert during such situations, not necessarily as an act of aggression, but as a signal of deterrence and preparedness. However, this kind of positioning also increases tension, because it sends a clear message to other nations that the situation is serious enough to warrant immediate action if required. Another important factor is the network of alliances that the United States is part of. Its commitment to supporting allies means that if Israel becomes directly involved in a larger conflict, the United States could be pulled in more actively, whether through defensive support, intelligence sharing, or direct military engagement. This interconnected system of alliances creates a chain reaction effect, where one country's involvement can quickly lead to the participation of others, expanding the scope of the conflict beyond its original boundaries. At the same time, internal and external pressures influence how the United States responds. Political expectations, global leadership responsibilities, and the need to maintain credibility all play a role in decision-making. This reduces the space for neutrality and increases the likelihood of taking a clear stance. As a result, even actions intended to prevent conflict, such as deploying forces for deterrence, can sometimes be interpreted as escalation by opposing sides, further intensifying an already fragile situation. Wars often don't begin with a clear announcement or a formal declaration. Instead, they emerge from a chain of small, seemingly manageable events that gradually spiral out of control. In situations like the rising tensions between Iran and Israel, the real danger lies in how quickly a single miscalculation can trigger a much larger response. One side may interpret an action as defensive, while the other sees it as aggressive, and that difference in perception alone can ignite a rapid escalation. These kinds of triggers are often unpredictable. It could be an airstrike that goes further than intended, a missile that hits a more sensitive target than expected, or even intelligence failures that lead to incorrect assumptions. In such high-tension environments, decisions are made quickly, often with limited information, which increases the risk of mistakes. Once a response is initiated, the opposing side feels compelled to react immediately, creating a cycle where each move becomes more intense than the last. Another critical factor is the speed of modern warfare. With advanced technology, communication systems, and pre-planned military strategies, reactions are almost instant. There is very little time for leaders to pause, assess, and choose restraint. This rapid pace removes the buffer that once existed in conflicts, where diplomatic channels could intervene before situations escalated too far. Now, actions and reactions can unfold within minutes, leaving almost no room for de-escalation once the process has started. At the same time, the presence of the United States adds another layer of complexity to these potential triggers. Any incident involving Israel could quickly draw attention and possible involvement from the United States, which raises the stakes significantly. What might have remained a localized exchange in the past now carries the risk of expanding into a broader conflict, simply because of how interconnected global powers have become and how quickly they respond to emerging threats. The visible increase in military buildup and strategic positioning is one of the clearest signs that the situation is moving beyond normal political tension and into a phase of active preparation. Both Iran and Israel are not only maintaining strong defensive systems, but are also positioning their forces in ways that allow for rapid response. This includes the movement of missile systems, air defense units, and surveillance capabilities that are designed to detect and react to threats almost instantly. Such positioning is not random. It reflects calculated planning where each side is preparing for multiple scenarios at once. What makes this buildup more concerning is the level of coordination and readiness involved. Military forces are often placed on high alert during such periods, meaning they are ready to act at a moment's notice rather than requiring time to mobilize. This reduces the delay between decision and action, which might seem efficient from a strategic perspective, but also increases the risk of immediate escalation. When forces are already prepared and waiting, even a small trigger can activate a much larger response without the usual pause for reassessment. In addition to this, strategic locations across the region become highly significant. Certain areas, whether they are borders, waterways, or key military bases, start to carry more weight because control over these points can influence the outcome of any potential conflict. Both sides carefully monitor these zones, and any unusual activity in these areas can be interpreted as a threat. This constant state of observation creates an environment where suspicion grows and trust becomes almost non-existent. The involvement of the United States further amplifies this buildup. Its military presence in the region, combined with advanced technology and rapid deployment capabilities, adds another layer of intensity. When multiple powerful forces are positioned close to each other with high readiness levels, the situation becomes extremely sensitive. Every movement, whether it is a routine patrol or a defensive adjustment, can be misinterpreted by others as preparation for attack, increasing the likelihood of tension escalating even further. The system of global alliances is one of the most powerful factors that can turn a limited conflict into something far more widespread, especially in a situation involving Iran and Israel. These alliances are not just symbolic relationships. They are backed by agreements, expectations, and in many cases, direct commitments to provide support during times of crisis. This means that if one country becomes heavily involved in a conflict, its allies may feel obligated, politically, strategically, or even morally, to step in and support it. For example, Israel has strong backing from the United States, which significantly raises the stakes of any escalation. On the other side, Iran has influence and connections across various groups and regions, which can indirectly expand the conflict beyond traditional borders. This creates a situation where the involvement of one nation does not remain isolated, but instead pulls in multiple actors, each with their own interests and strategic goals. Another important aspect is how quickly these alliances can activate. In today's interconnected world, communication between allied nations is immediate, and coordination can happen in real time. Military support, intelligence sharing, and logistical assistance can be provided rapidly, allowing allies to become part of the situation almost instantly. This speed reduces the chances of containing the conflict early, as more participants become involved before any diplomatic solution can take hold. At the same time, alliances can create pressure to respond in a certain way. Leaders may feel that failing to support an ally could weaken their global position or damage long-term relationships. This pressure can lead to decisions that prioritize loyalty and strength over caution and restraint. As more countries align themselves on different sides, the conflict becomes more complex, with overlapping interests and competing strategies, making it harder to control or predict the direction it will take. The current situation carries the weight of becoming a historic turning point because of how many critical elements are coming together at the same time. When tensions rise simultaneously between powerful nations, when military forces are already positioned and alert, and when global attention is fully focused on a single region, it creates a moment that has the potential to reshape international dynamics. In the case of Iran and Israel, the intensity of their rivalry, combined with the broader involvement of the United States, makes this situation far more significant than a typical conflict. What makes a moment like this historically important is not just the actions being taken, but the long-term consequences those actions can create. Decisions made under pressure, whether military, political, or strategic, can influence global stability for years or even decades. A single escalation could redefine alliances, shift power balances, and change how countries interact with each other on the world stage. This is how certain conflicts move beyond being regional issues and start to influence global history. Another factor is the level of global awareness and real-time information. Unlike past conflicts, where news traveled slowly and reactions were delayed, today the entire world is watching events unfold almost instantly. Governments, analysts, and even the general public are reacting in real time, which increases the pressure on decision-makers. Every move is analyzed, criticized, and responded to immediately, creating an environment where leaders must act quickly while knowing that their actions are under constant global scrutiny. At the same time, the uncertainty surrounding what could happen next adds to the sense that this moment is different. There is no clear path forward, no predictable outcome, and no guarantee that tensions will de-escalate. This unpredictability is what often defines moments that later become turning points in history, where the direction of events is shaped not by a single decision, but by a series of choices made under intense pressure and uncertainty.